Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for everyone who's been waiting for me and everyone joining us. Let's give ourselves a minute to make sure everything is live. Before we begin, we have a lot to talk about tonight. Many things to talk about. I had to add a couple of things to the live stream later this evening. And it looks like everything is fine now. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me and waiting. Thank you for all of our members and moderators, all of the subscribers and viewers. I had intended previously to speak about the invasion that is actively taking place now in Rafah and what the Palestinian resistance prepared for them. But then, obviously, Hamas accepted this ceasefire deal. And there's a lot to say, but let me elaborate on this. So the war cabinet, we've had the talk about Rafah 24/7. The cabinet approved it today. What did they approve? What did they approve? And what led us to this stage? So Rafah has been, the main thing for the past 4 months now. We're going to invade Rafah, we're going to bomb them. Why? Why was it Rafah initially? It was Rafah initially because they failed with every objective and they wanted to invade Rafah to bomb it and expel the Palestinian population to Egypt. It started to take steps back and be paused and delayed because many steps were taken. Firstly, the perseverance of the Palestinian resistance and the brave Palestinian people. Then Egypt took measures. Then they had pressure from the United States, who told them, we're not going to give you a green light for a full operation. Rafah, you're not reassuring us. Their allies, because they call themselves the international community, they're not the international community. There are a couple of elites in London, Washington, and Paris, and a couple of capitals, mainly the US, really. Europe is a puppet of the United States of America. It led us to this moment. What was approved? What was approved is a limited ground invasion in the eastern part of Rafah. They informed the Egyptians this morning that we are going to take a limited action only in the eastern part of Rafah, which is obviously the area closer to Israel, where the reservists were, where Hamas was attacking. And they were trying to reassure Egypt that, look, nothing is going to happen. Don't worry. If we're going to go to East Rafah, we're not going to go to Central Rafah. We're not going to go deeper in. It's only going to be restricted to East Rafah. It's going to be limited. Why did they do that? They did that as a final step, climbing down the ladder. They already climbed down everything with the ladder, by the way. What were the military objectives? We have to repeat that, so that people don't say, oh, you're delusional. What were the military objectives? The military objectives were demolishing the Hamas, making Gaza not pose a threat ever, returning the Israeli prisoners. The hidden objectives, and obviously not so hidden because some of them already said it, is to complete the ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. Did they achieve any of that? No. They only achieved their part of that, which is getting back some of their people, way more than they killed, by the way. They go back like 2 or 3 through the military operation, and they got like 3 or 4 bodies, and they killed over 80. They killed way more than they got back during the military operation. They didn't care about their people. They wanted to eliminate all of them so Hamas don't use them as leverage against them. Everyone with an ounce of brain knows that by now. So they haven't achieved anything. They failed. What was the last thing? A military campaign in Rafah. Why? Because Itamar Ben-Gvir wanted to have pressure on Netanyahu. Military Rafah. He promised him. A couple of days ago, he warned Benjamin Netanyahu. He told him, remember what you promised me last week, and you know what the repercussions are if you don't go on Rafah. If you don't go on an offensive in Rafah. Bibi Netanyahu understands the pressure, understands the defeat, understands the boiling streets in Israel against him, and that he still needs to please everyone. So what does he do? He comes up with a limited attack in Rafah that will do nothing, by the way. They will achieve nothing in Rafah similar to what they haven't achieved anything in any other part of Gaza, where they got a humiliation and a beating like never before from the Palestinian resistance that demolished their army. They annihilated the state of Israel, the Palestinian resistance. And then you have these stupid genocidal supporters now thinking that Hamas's approval is somehow linked to the military campaign announcement. To that, I will add, wasn't anything that Israel did before enough? Did that not intimidate Hamas before? They landed one-ton bombs, several one-ton bombs every minute on civilian populations, killing the families, children, women, bombing them, hospitals, everything. Do you think if Hamas had any sort of pressure, wouldn't it have been 6 months ago when they were bombing residential buildings, you ignorant fools? Do you think the military pressure led to Hamas? What Hamas did is a checkmate. What Hamas did is a brilliant political move. Why? Because they pulled the rug on Benjamin Netanyahu. No more leverage. He was threatening, Rafah. Okay, we accept the deal. The deal that you approved, by the way. Yesterday, Yoav Gallant was saying, we need to accept the deal, that's it. It's good for us, we have an obligation, we need to accept the deal. Okay. Now Hamas accepted the deal. There you go. And they get what they want. Minus, a couple of, leniency towards when the complete ceasefire will be announced, how many per ratio in the beginning, But the fact of the matter is, Israel already gave Hamas whatever they need before the announcement of the ceasefire. They opened up the aid to the north. They allowed people to the north. They already released Palestinian prisoners. And they withdrew 95% of their army from Gaza. This is a brilliant military and political accomplishment. What do you want? The priority of Gaza now is to end the genocide. Here we go. That's it. Except the ceasefire. Israel will most likely continue with Rafah. A limited operation that wouldn't attract too much. Okay. Again, they might do the opposite, ladies and gentlemen, but they might go full scale. But so far, based on what we're seeing, okay, so, and none of what I'm saying here is holy. But this is my assumption. They will continue on a very limited ground invasion in Rafah, and it had to be ground invasion so they don't give the radical right wing and the hyper genocidal maniacs in the Israeli population any reason to have any sort of criticism afterwards. Why? Because Netanyahu wants to protect his network for the government for after the war. Why? Because he wouldn't go on an election. Many people are calling for election, this election, tomorrow election, this and that. He has to please Ben Gvir and Smotrich to the max. But he has to try and reach somewhat of a joint understanding between them as well to lower their expectations too. They are saying, clearly we want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. We don't want anyone there. Remove everyone. And they want settlements. Bibi is facing pressure, obviously. Palestinian resistance are beating him. The Palestinian people are shocking him with their faith and perseverance and resilience, unseen in history, really. And you have Egypt, you have the United States, the international community, the image, He has to please Ben Gvir. But he said over 4 months ago, they told him early elections. Why? Because it was already boiling against him from the judicial reform days up until now, and there are protests every day. And I will have to post another video about the protests in Israel because it's being updated by the minute, by the way, what they're doing now in Israel. You don't know what people are doing now on the streets of Israel. So he said, we have a date for the elections in 4 years' time, saying, I'm not going to have an election. So I'm protecting myself. He is looking for the day after him. after the war, for him being there, he can only secure it if Itamar Ben-Gvir supports him, unless he has guarantees by some people from within the opposition, and he's done it before, he might do it again, that we will join your government if you accept the deal, and they withdraw. But they will write their political chapter off. That's it. Or will lose a massive number from their voters, because many people who went into coalition with Netanyahu after promising they won't initially and always talking against him, they lost half of their voters. They know now, because he's been doing it for 15 years. Who didn't he propose to have a government with? From the hard left, from the Islamic movement in Israel, right, up to the furthest far right that he's with now. Hard left to hard right, he'll do any deal with anyone to stay in power. So now he needs to please Ben-Gvir, and he needs to please Smotrich, have a very limited attack in Rafah. Again, don't take it. He might go for something bigger. We might see another massive genocide. I hope we won't. It might happen, but look, this is what's happening. From Hamas's perspective, okay, what did they agree upon? What was the deal? What did they agree? Was it different? Was it different? Because they knew the pressure that's going to be on Netanyahu. They knew the streets are going to be raging against him, and they've done it successfully. Yahya Sinwar is a political genius, by the way. You need to understand that. He's not just a military strategist, he's a political strategist. And he threatened Netanyahu previously. We will take what we want by force if you don't give it to us with peace. He said it 2 years ago to Bibi Netanyahu. If you heard some of his speeches in Arabic. So what did Hamas accept? We heard particularly the deputy, Hamas leader of the political bureau. His name is Khalil al-Hayy. Khalil al-Hayy, he said a couple of things. He said that he had an interview with Al Jazeera, and he said that they received, and that's number one, they received an update yesterday. That's again another thing for the people who are saying the military pressure is pushing Hamas to accept the deal and that nonsense. What was proposed upon us yesterday, he said, is a result of negotiations from March. They had negotiations before, but they reignited in March. There have been developments until we received the proposals from the mediators yesterday. And the key things that are different revolve around the permanent ceasefire. It's still going to be 3 stages, 42 days each stage. First stage, obviously, withdrawal from the highly dense and populated areas, ending surveillance for part of the time. Complete withdrawal, ending any military activity, confirmation that there will be a full ceasefire. Return of everyone in Gaza to everywhere in Gaza, everyone who was evacuated, freely. Israel tried to say nothing in the north, and then they said only women and children to the north, and now they're accepting that everyone's going to go to the north, and they're implementing it. If anyone is unable to see that this is a pure defeat and humiliation from Israel, then they're blind. Then he added getting the aid in the final stage, obviously getting the aid in before, but in the final stage, you will have everything to do with the rebuilding plan monitored by Qatar, Egypt, and the UN, raising the funds for rebuilding Gaza, having temporary housing for all of the people up until they rebuild it, because there needs to be planning, structure, everything, and all of the money. There were estimates that it's going to cost approximately 90 billion. It's going to take several years. With regards to the prisoners, similarly to what I told you in the last couple of days, nothing has changed very much. Initially, they will begin with the females, the ill, and the over 50s. And Israel said we need 33 in the initial stage. Hamas told them we'll release 33, but we can't guarantee if they're dead or alive. And Israel was fine with that, by the way. Why we can't guarantee if they're dead or alive? Because Israel killed them. Israel killed them in their airstrikes. That's why the families of those people in Israel are in the streets. Now they're saying, accept a deal or we'll burn the country. We'll burn the country. Then the other stages will include a couple of other things. It will include some of the people in the and Palestinians with very high sentences. And there's obviously a ratio. There's a ratio, 1 per how many in terms of the Palestinians. And they will exchange bodies eventually of the Palestinian martyrs and any Israelis who were killed in Gaza by Israel, because mostly Israel killed them. They killed over 50 of which were killed by Israeli airstrikes, confirmed by Israelis as well. But obviously they don't tell you that on mainstream media. They wouldn't want you to know that. In the first 30 days in the genocide, people who were released said that, people who were in prison, and survivors of the 7th of October massacre that Israel committed against its own civilians. So, what did the United States say? What did the US say? The White House says, reaching an agreement is the best result, and we won't stop until we achieve this. The US provided its opinion to Israel that invasion will risk lives. That's why Israel started talking about protecting lives, as if they care. They want to kill them. They don't want to build the humanitarian corridors or what have you. Care about lives. You care about lives. You kill 34,500 and now more innocent civilians, percent of which women and children. What are you talking about? These people want to kill every living thing in Gaza. But they started saying that after the US intervention, a couple of their allies started to put more pressure, etc. Biden saw the Hamas response this afternoon after he had already spoken to Bibi. He spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu this morning. Not a lot has been revealed about this conversation. It was probably a bit of a tell-off, maybe. But Netanyahu was clear yesterday in his statement. We will, even if we're alone, we'll do it. Even if our allies are not with us, we'll do it. Typical. Sending a message to who? To the United States, firstly. And there were other statements coming out. You know, how ironic this is. Yeah. We hope that, they're going to practice self-restraint or what have you from other, what I call the genocidal generosity or generosity for genocide. So you can commit a genocide, but do it lightly, on low heat. Don't kill too many all at once. Kill them bit by bit like you used to before. Then we'll be fine with you. But don't kill too many. So, we don't want to hear people talking. And, okay, Israel, the genocide generosity. And they also said, the White House, Karm Abu Salim crossing must be opened quickly. US is keen on opening the crossings, and we cannot support an operation in Rafah as currently envisioned by Israel. Why don't you apply the same argument to the Palestinians? You can attack exactly as you envision at the moment, but you can, it's okay. As the absurdity, I'm telling you, the absurdity with this. Now, this agreement, Hamas, one of the key things from Hamas before was to have guarantors to this agreement, and there will be guarantors. They will be Qatar, Egypt, the United States, and the UN. Okay? There will be, obviously, there was a response from Israel now that they're continuing the operation in Rafah. Not saying anything about Hamas accepting the deal, but the only thing they said, we're continuing our operation in Rafah. We're continuing the operation in Rafah, but they didn't say if we also accept or also reject. Okay, because if they immediately say we outright reject, then you can expect everything to turn into chaos with the Israeli streets. And another thing that I wanted to tell you here, in case Israel plans, and then I'll open the space up for you for your questions and comments. If you wouldn't mind highlighting them, so that when I can reach them, I can access them quickly. If they do plan to go on a full-scale invasion, they will suffer the greatest losses. They will suffer the greatest losses, more than anything in any other part in Gaza. Why? Because for 6 months, the Palestinian resistance, despite barbaric acts and bombings, over 80,000 tons of TNT, the equivalent of 3 nuclear bombs the size that were landed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, okay? If the Palestinian resistance was still active despite all of this barbarism and military intensity, if they survived in those areas at every single point, imagine what their situation would be in Rafah. Full scale, everything prepared, everything is ready for them. They have different types of TNT bombs, traps, everything. Yasin 105 ready everywhere. With their produced their own production, the Yasin 105. They took down 1,200 Israeli vehicles, ladies and gentlemen, 1,000 of which Merkavas. They destroyed all of the new Merkavas. They had to resort to using older Merkavas. They destroyed all of Israel's supply of modern troop carriers, the Tiger, Hanamir it's called. They resorted to using the M113 from the 1960s that only requires a match to light it up. If you throw a stone, it'll probably go through its rusty metal. And they're talking about it. They don't have the capacity. Anyone who thinks this military pressure force, they're delusional. They don't know anything on the ground. The Israeli military is destroyed, is humiliated. People are refusing to serve. Bibi himself declared over 2 months ago we're in urgent need of 7,500 troops. In the beginning of the war, 2,000 fled from one brigade, including 2 commanders. 3 million are outside of Israel. They fled Israel. People are not believing in the state anymore, let alone the army. And if you have so many people against what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing, then why should they had to withdraw, go to the war, go join the army. They had to withdraw the division fighting in Gaza because they didn't want to fight for Netanyahu. Division 36, that consists of traditional Israeli military combatants, and then they send them to Lebanon. Who did they bring? Kfir. Who's Kfir? Kfir is a division consisting of radical maniac squatters from the West Bank. Ultra Zionist religious people. Not the Orthodox, religious Zionists. There's a difference between them. They're the ones going there. They're the ones willing to fight. They probably want a property with sea view in Gaza. They think, oh, yeah, I'm going to destroy this house and I'm going to have my flat here. Over probably 200,000-300,000 corpses of babies and children underneath me is fine. That's what's happening. And these people have no urban warfare experience even. That's why they're being beaten. If the more experienced division was withdrew humiliated, what are these amateurs going to do? What are these amateurs going to do? They're going to do nothing. They're going to leave Rafah humiliated, like they left humiliated from every other part in Gaza. They were attacking them from Beit Hanun when their full forces were there. Do you know where Beit Hanun is? The upmost northern part in North Gaza, close to the Israeli border. You walk to the Israeli border. That's when they had everyone. So how are you expecting to come and achieve any sort of dismantle the brigade as if And remember what I told you about the dismantling and how they define it, by the way, and how some Israelis completely debunked this idea of dismantling, that no division is dismantled by Hamas. He'll receive reports from the intelligence community and the people on the ground telling him, X force in X location, based on what? I have no clue. They're in the tunnels, you hypocritical liars. Anyway, they'll send a report to Netanyahu telling him they went down from 700 to 500. Netanyahu say we dismantled the brigade. There's still 500, according to them, and the report might be a lie too, but let's say we want to believe them. So this guy that I quoted is a couple of weeks ago. He said Netanyahu's lying to the public because he's saying that they dismantle them if they reduce some of their numbers. That's not dismantling. Or if their command is now from another brigade or division. The Palestinian resistance proved that they still have full communication, full freedom of movement, over the ground, under the ground. They still target Israel with every weapon that they do, especially with the self-made weapons, self-manufactured weapons. And you think you're going to achieve, the only thing you can achieve in Rafah is another genocide. You've been attacking, who did they kill now in the last 24 hours? Children, women, that's what they do. Forcibly expelling people from tents. And the enlightened democracies that support them are, we're concerned, and, the humanitarian pause and da-da-da-da-da-da. Why? Because they're more genocidal than them. They're more genocidal than them. Vast history of mass murder, of enslavement. They look at Israel and think, oh, pathetic little Israel, only killing 34,000, 35,000. Pathetic you. We kill tens of millions, hundreds of millions. What are you doing? Peanuts. That's why for some people who are kind of surprised by the response of US, Britain, or EU states, right? Genocidal history, full of enslavement, stealing people's lands, killing people in massive numbers, enslaving them in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, everywhere. This is what they do. This is their history. But no, condemning Israel is too painful for them, because they would look in the mirror and think, oh, no. Let's not dig. Let's not look into history. Let's not do that. It'll be nicer if we just tone it down, brush everything under the carpet, and you just call on Israel to, just tone it down with this collateral damage, and cast doubt on what Hamas say, everything that comes out of Gaza. Oh, a Hamas-led ministry says 40 killed. A Hamas-led health ministry says 2 dead because of acts of aggression. From who? Not the child-killing, murdering forces, the child baby killers of Israel slaughtering innocent civilians. No, the Hamas Health Run Ministry of Gaza says da. After they've been labeling Hamas for a century now. But people are waking up. I mean, I'm sure most of you don't watch mainstream media, but it exists. It exists, ladies and gentlemen, still happen. Anyway, that was from me. How about you? Let's see how about you and what you're saying. Firstly, John Doe, thank you so much for your super thanks. You're saying Man of the Year 2025 Peace Nobel Prize winner Yahya Sinwar. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in a few years' time. They called Nelson Mandela a big terrorist. He ended up having a Peace Nobel Prize, didn't he? Right? And the people who opposed him and called him a terrorist and imprisoned everyone protesting against apartheid white supremacist South Africa, they tried to hide now as if they didn't say anything. They'll do the same with Hamas. And they will be written down in history at some point as the great liberators of Palestine. That's what will happen. ZUK, thank you for your super thanks as well. And Canadian Snowflake, thank you so much. He said, thank you for your reliable reporting. Free Palestine. Thank you so much for your supers. Am I missing anything else? Let me just have a look. And then we will go to, also, Patricia, thank you so much. Patricia and Koopa Coop, thank you for your super thanks. And Blank Stairs and Mudassar Hussein, thank you. And Francis Fitzgerald, thank you so much. And Canadian Snowflake, and Emily as well. Ben Steed, thank you so much. Said Free Palestine. And Khalid Razak, thank you so much for all of you for your super thanks. Francis is saying, I'm sorry if I missed it, but what did Hamas agree on? What they have to give up? They agreed on the amended version of the ceasefire that was proposed to them yesterday by the mediators. That was very similar to what they requested, with slight amendments to do with the numbers of days down from 45 to 43. When will the complete ceasefire be announced? A couple of things to do with when will the military personnel of Israel be released who are kept in Gaza, etc. However, in the grand scheme of things, the core things that the Palestinians want are there, and they accepted on it. They accepted it as a move to pull the rug off, from underneath Benjamin Netanyahu, not to give him any more excuse. He doesn't have any card to play now, but he will most likely go on probably a limited campaign in Rafah and potentially reach a deal afterwards. But he's considering the protection net from his government because he wants to continue as prime minister. Obviously, he is not going to leave. And Jihad Al-Aidi, thank you so much for your super thanks. You are amazing. So are you. Okay, let's see if you have any questions as well. If anyone posted anything earlier on, if you wouldn't mind posting it again, because some of the messages disappear, and highlight them if possible, so I don't miss anything. I was saying, I believe this only restores separation thereafter. Well, a couple of things here. Defeating Israel and not allowing Israel to achieve its military objectives is a victory. Let's remember that very well. Okay, for anyone looking for massive liberation and everything and ending, that's not going to happen. We told you from day one, it's just a long thing. It's not a day and a night thing, okay? But let me tell you a couple of things. Going back to the status quo, by the way, before the 7th of October is a disaster for Israel. Why is it a disaster for Israel? Because it's keeping the same people who have the capacity to conduct the 7th of October in Gaza. What does that send to the citizens of Israel? What does that send to the people living around Gaza? What does that send to the people who live on the borders of Lebanon? That we need to live with someone who can beat the living daylight out of us tomorrow. That's why 3 million already fled and are never coming back, by the way. And more will be fleeing after this, trust you me. And hardly anyone is going to return to the areas surrounding Gaza. And hardly anyone is going to go back to the areas surrounding Lebanon. Hezbollah destroyed, obviously, in some parts over 80-90% of the houses anyway. What are they going to do? With Gaza? You didn't dismantle the network of tunnels? What are they going to tell you, the people? They might have a tunnel to my home tomorrow. Hamas didn't show them everything on the 7th of October. They showed you the paragliders and them breaking the wall. They didn't show you the tunnels. What, don't you think that they didn't go in tunnels, but they didn't, to mislead them? Of course they did. And don't the Israelis know that? Of course they do. That's, need to know what this does to the morale of a nation. Me thinking my neighbor has a tunnel to my house, he can tomorrow come and kill me. And let's not forget why does that threat exist? I mean, you probably know that by now. It's because of the regime of supremacy. It's because 72% of the population in Gaza before the 7th of October were already refugees forced from where? From what's now called Israel, occupied Palestine, forcibly removed and expelled through terrorism. Leaders of the resistance movement witnessing traumas in their childhood of people being mass slaughtered in the areas that they were ethnically cleansed from, and that their enemies take pride in that ethnic cleansing and raping 15-year-old girls and burning them to death afterwards in 1948. In case you haven't watched At-Tantura, go ahead and watch it. And look how Israel was established. That's why. So unless you have full equality, a dismantling of the regime of the supremacy, giving everyone between the Jordan River to the sea equal rights, you will forever have a conflict. Why? Look why. Look why. Gaza told you why. Because even if you bomb the living daylight out of them, they will still be there. Like the phoenix, they will rise from the ashes. They don't give up. That's why. And if they don't want to learn the lesson, what are they gonna? They're going to have to learn it the hard way. Israel proved throughout its history it doesn't concede unless it's met with force. They occupy Sinai, expelled by force, war. They occupy South Lebanon, even though they created an army. It's called the South Lebanon Army back then. Expelled by force. They went to Gaza, expelled by force. Not by asking them, oh, do me a favor, Israel, can you give me my rights? Palestinian citizens of Israel have been asking for equal rights for 75 years. Every year, some of the Palestinian origin members of the Israeli parliament will say, please pass a law saying that we live in a state for all its citizens. Why? Because it's the state of the Jewish people. Because we have something called the nation-state law, which states that this is a Jewish land, only Jews have the privilege. You, bugger off. That's it. And when we talk about liberation in general, you're not talking about a one-day event or a 6-month event or a 1-year event, even though history and events are happening much quicker nowadays with the advancement, with social media, with information passing by so quickly and so unfiltered, although mainstream media filters and spins and lies, obviously. That's why we don't watch them even. So things can happen quickly. And we need to understand the scale of what happened. And don't forget how you establish the result of a war. Are your military objectives achieved? Did you achieve your military objectives or not? If yes, you won. If not, you lost. Israel lost. Simple. With all of the destruction, with 35,000. 70,000 with everything, Israel lost. Israel lost. Yeah. So you need to remember that. Coop, have you heard that the US is no longer supplying to them? Is this another trick? I heard that, and that's true. Look, they still sell them weapons. They gave them a massive air bridge, but everyone must observe the leverage used by the US since the beginning. Since the beginning, what was the first leverage that they used against them? Withdrawing the aircraft carrier. Immediately after the 7th of October, the US sent an aircraft carrier. Why? To deter Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. After the temporary ceasefire ended, Israel ended the temporary ceasefire. Because don't forget, they broke it. Yoav Gallant himself signed the ending of the temporary ceasefire and re-engaging in the war. Don't forget that. Hamas was willing to continue. As a matter of fact, Hamas told them from day one, consider it a done deal. We're willing to engage in negotiations now and take all of our troops back. And we don't want your prisoners. We just want our prisoners. But you haven't been listening to us for decades now through negotiations. So we had to kidnap some of yours so you can bring ours back. No, they didn't. They went on a genocide full of hate and vengeance. And that's what happened. So the US withdrew it initially. Why? Because they gave Israel an ultimatum, an undeclared ultimatum, them and other countries too. You have 45 days to kill Hamas. Boom, genocide. Don't forget what they used to say about the innocent civilians. They weren't even mentioning them. Anyone who's saying, oh, please, no innocent civilians, they'll say, shut up. No, Israel, self-defense. Oh, shh. That's what the US and British officials and EU officials used to say, shut up. No, they're practicing Hamas and although they ignored everything to do with Israeli witnesses telling them how Israel massacred its own civilians on the 7th of October. In the Rafah festival, with helicopters and the images published from October, from statements from people in Kibbutz Be'eri in Nir Oz to pilots later on saying, we were ordered to shoot at anything going back to Gaza. Hamas conducted a military operation on the 7th of October. Israel committed a genocide on the 7th of October. Get that straight. And get it from Israel. Get it from Israel. That's why they started silencing all of those who were released, by the way. Oh, no, you can't talk to the media. Because Yocheved Lifshitz, the first one who was released on a humanitarian basis from Hamas, without any return, by the way, they told Israel, please take her. Israel said, no, we don't want to take her. What kind of country does that? Then they proposed again, no, we don't want to take her. They ended up giving this old woman to Egypt. Ended up having a press statement, bang on the Israeli government and what they've done. They shot at us while we were going to Gaza. The Palestinian resistance treated us very good, very fairly. They were very kind to us. They gave us food. They gave us medicine. She shook hands with an Al-Qassam fighter when she left. Shalom, telling him salam. That was a catastrophe for Israel. Oh my God. The people that were captives held by Hamas are saying that about them. Oh no. No, let's kill all of them. That's what they thought. And that's why they were careless about them now, to this day. They know they're going to be released. There's going to be a catastrophe, a bigger catastrophe. Don't worry. So the US had this leverage, and then they said, okay, you didn't eliminate Hamas. And notice, if Israel continued bombing Gaza at the same level they did in the first month, we would have had 100,000 confirmed casualties by now. They didn't. So they withdrew this. Not to say that the US is good. Don't misinterpret it. The US is worse than Israel. The administration. They're enablers. They could have prevented this. But I'm talking about the leverage. Then you had a lack of some of those really heavy bombs. Then you started having delays. Then you had Chuck Schumer confirming that we will start using leverage if you don't play ball and that Israel needs elections. Benjamin Netanyahu is not listening. Now you have this delay. Not to say they just approved billions, aid to them and to Ukraine. But there is leverage being used for political. It's not a strategic shift. Don't think that it's a strategic shift. No. Excuse me. U.S. strategy is still the same. They want Israel. They love Israel. But they don't want them to behave like they are. No, don't behave like that. Commit a genocide, but do it slowly. Do it under the carpet. Don't bring it to the headlines. Don't let people cause chaos and protests. We don't want that. That's the US. Low heat conflict. That's the foreign policy of the United States of America. Divide and rule. Typical. That's why they want a two-state solution to continue the conflict, by the way. Instead of calling for the obvious, oh, hell, let's implement a democracy and give historical rights so we can solve this once and for all. No, that's not how empires think, let alone genocidal empires. They don't think like that. They'll think, yeah, committed genocide, a more intelligence evil. What's happening in Israel is more stupid, blatant, in-your-face evil. But, U.S. administration, British government, some of the EU countries, they want the more intelligent evil, Let's do it on the sly, yeah, quietly, kill them, no problem, fine. But don't bring it to the global scene. We don't want that, cause us a headache. Come on, Israel. That's what they'll do. So it's not a trick, but it's not a strategic change. It's just a technical move for leverage. And John Doe, thank you so much for your super thanks. And David Yee as well, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, for your generosity. John Doe saying, sorry if I missed it, but how can Netanyahu accept the deal, and how can he survive politically with Ben Gvir and Smotrich alive? Is he planning a lethal car accident for the next few days? Love, brother, and love Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. Much love back, and thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you. Well, he wants to please them slightly and continue as a prime minister. It's a difficult task. It's not an easy task for Netanyahu, but Netanyahu will always come up with a trick up his sleeve. He does tricks, Netanyahu. We'll give it to him. He knows how to get himself out of trouble. He knows how to spin things. He will go and have a very convincing speech in the midst of chaos. He's capable of doing that. That's why he's been the prime minister for so long. He can convince people. Now, you might ask, what kind of people are convinced by this man? Well, hell, how are people convinced with all of these governments around the world? That's how it works. And obviously, you have the media spinning and brainwashing, indoctrination, and the history in Israel as an ethno-supremacy, indoctrinating people on racism from their beginning. So you can consider all of that. But in many ways, he would rather have allies, but he knows the score that most of the people in opposition refuse to have a deal with them because it would end their political careers and they would be criticized heavily by their voters and political supporters. So he doesn't want that, but he is looking for the day after. He wants to give Ben Gvir and Smotrich their last meal of blood. He wants to give them the last blood meal of some Palestinian children and women and tell them, look, here's the sacrifice, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, let me stay. So he wants a couple of truckloads of Palestinian bodies and some blood. Maybe they'll do a ritual with it, and then he'll continue ruling as the Israeli prime minister. Fight Back is saying students in Amsterdam are intense at university, police trying to get them out. Great. And now it's in Britain too, Oxford and Cambridge, which is amazing, really. It is really, really amazing. Miss Nancy saying, how can the resistance fighters trust anything Israel or US says? They don't. They don't trust them. But they're looking out for a deal that will obviously give the Palestinian people what they need, depending on the priority. And the priority now is to end the genocide and get the aid in, rebuild Gaza. Look, people, we're sitting here happy, clappy, and, choosing our next meal. And you have people living in tents that for many days didn't have any food, that would share a bite of an apple. There was a priest in Gaza. There's a small Christian community. One of the priests in Gaza, he posted a picture of him eating an apple. He was holding an apple like this and looking at the apple and biting, and he said, oh my God, did I miss this apple for 6 months? I haven't eaten an apple, but I shared it with 3 other people. That's the level, and kids died from hunger. So it's important to end the human suffering, and that slowly but surely has been lifted by the persistence of the Palestinian resistance and them imposing conditions of Israel. And mind you, not all of it would be declared, because declaring it outright would put Israel in a really bad situation. Israel doesn't want that. But from the Palestinian perspective, I'm getting my rights, even if it's not public knowledge that I have a deal with them and they're getting it in. It's part of a bigger deal later on. But for Israel, they will say later on, okay, we achieved the deal, but we didn't give them everything. Why did you not give them everything? Because we already gave them a couple of things before the ceasefire, which is something which I called the semi-ceasefire. That happened because Israel was starting to give them everything that they want, bit by bit, at least in terms of humanitarian aid. Don't forget, initially they were preventing water from them. And you had genocidal politicians in Britain, genocidal politicians and heads of state in other countries saying, oh yeah, it's perfectly fine to cut people off water. Water. People were drinking from the sea. If they find a well somewhere or whatever, they'll work 24/7. And then Israel will come and bomb it. So it's not that they trust them, but they're looking for a deal that will be for the benefit of the people in Gaza. And the most important thing for the people now is to end the genocide and get them some remnants of normality, because they deserve it. They're not subhuman. No one should be living in tents nowadays for one day. No one should be living in tents, and some of them in the streets. No bathrooms, no toilets, can't take a shower, kids roaming around with black feet. Well, this is not a situation to live in. So the priority is to end what's happening. And obviously the Gaza population, they showed immense, unbelievable resilience and faith. Unbelievable, you know? Mountains will crash and these people won't crash. And you need to find a solution. You can't keep pushing it and ignore the fact that you have a human catastrophe at the largest scale seen in the 21st century. And then, Kate, will Israel honor the ceasefire deal knowing that they are known to be deceivers? You're right, they're known to be deceivers, but they haven't agreed on the deal yet. They just said that we're continuing the action on Rafah. They had a phone meeting, the cabinet, not a physical meeting. They had a telephone meeting a couple of hours ago. And everything is published by the minute, really. That's why you probably have to have another update after this. But no, they can't be trusted. But look, it's you're just going to put them in an impossible situation. Like after all of this, and then you end it, and then you want to go back to achieve what? To achieve eliminating Hamas? And now you know that it's impossible. Why would you want to go on a full-scale war again? Everyone in the world hates you. They see you as a pariah state committing genocide. Hashtags Israel as a terrorist state, Israel as neo-Nazism, Israel as this and that. What do you want exactly? You can't defeat them by all of your... You ended your munition, all of it, on Gaza. So what are you going to do next time? Bomb them the same and not guarantee the outcome or the response of a world against you? And forget about the loud mouths in mainstream media and the politicians who babble. A very teeny, mini, minority supports Israel. Who support them? If you look at mainstream media, you'll think, oh yeah, fine, yeah, oh, conflict, oh, is it still going? Really and truly, anyone who supports them? What? Who can support them? Oh, only the depraved, or mentally distorted. Who can support such a state? Dom Gold is saying, good evening, how many IOF you think dead and wounded? Because they lie. Look, if we base it on the leaked information that we have, there were numbers that were astonishing that were released by Israeli hospitals, and in some Israeli circles that they have hundreds of thousands of people suffering from PTSD. That's what, half of your army, if not all of them. Then you had a report saying that there were, and that's 2 months ago approximately, that there are 30,000 disabled. Okay. At one point, a couple of Israeli hospitals declared that they have about 10,000, and that's during the beginning. But let's take that just as a measuring parameter, right? If I'm correct. 30,000 disabled, not wounded, disabled. And there's a difference between disabled and wounded. Disabled, you can't fight again, as in you're exempt. But urban warfare stats, 3-1. The ratio is 3-1. So 3 wounded, 1 killed. Assuming that it was urban warfare in Gaza, it wasn't urban warfare. It was something similar to an urban warfare, but in urban warfare, you have whole buildings that you fight around and in. It was destroyed, and it worked in favor of the Palestinian resistance and against the child murdering forces. But let's say 30,000 disabled. If we say it's only 30,000 disabled who are injured and no one else is injured, that means, according to the stats, the general stats, without inflating anything, by the way, and they should be inflated, 10,000 killed. If you take in the ratio of disabled people during the war, they don't usually reach like half of the combatants, right? But let's say they're half of them. Let's be generous. Let's be conservative with the estimations. 60,000. So the number is in the tens of thousands. You had reports in many cemeteries in Israel, from military cemeteries, that they had a burial every hour. And they have many military cemeteries. And they don't include the people who have dual nationalities in many instances, by the way. Miss Cat is saying, Mahmoud, after I saw the video saying Hamas accepted the ceasefire plan, I saw a report that Israel backed out. Is that true? What I saw is not them backing out or rejecting it, but persisting on the Rafah campaign. That was interpreted by some people as them rejecting it. But they're having negotiations now from the war cabinet as to what to do. Christy, thank you so much for your super thanks. You said, God bless you, Mahmoud, and your wonderful community, and you. Thank you so much. And Amin, Danya, thank you so much for your super as well. Thank you very much for this. And everyone else that I hope I mentioned too. You said, I saw that coming. Curse Netanyahu insisting on invading Rafah. What other efforts to deal with madman with an army like him? I hope people are paying attention and learning why resisting is valid and necessity. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely valid and necessity. What else can you do? Look at it from an individual perspective before you look at states. If someone comes to your house tomorrow with a gun or a baton or whatever, telling you, hey, get the hell out of here, you and your family, what are you going to do? Tell him, yeah, come in, welcome, sure. If you're a man, you'd stand up against him. Or a woman. anyone with decency, with bravery, right? Not the cowards. So there was a Jewish protester once in the United States raising a banner for Palestine saying, respect existence or expect resistance. They don't, it's not only that they don't respect existence, they deny the existence. Israel denies the existence. That's why people say Palestine, raise flags. Do you think people would be raising flags? Why are people raising flags? For what? To show solidarity with people who are going through a genocide. That's why. No, I'm here. And guess what? I was here before you. And you're a squatter, imposter, right? It's important to know these things. And John Doe, thank you so much for your super. I really appreciate it. You said, I plan to spend a few weeks in Gaza with my family. I mean, my 3 kids. To live with the help of Palestinians there. Is there any Arab Jews suffering in Gaza with their Christian and Muslim brothers? No, there is no Jewish community in Gaza. There's a Jewish community in the West Bank, apart from the squatters, the Shomronim, they're called. They are some of all the people living there for a long time. These people, they have some of the most ancient, if not the most ancient, Torah scriptures. They call it the Temple Mount. It is the actual Temple Mount, according to this ancient Jewish community. It's called Har Grizim, Mount Grizim. Not where Al-Aqsa is, like the Zionists lie and tell you. And they have the archaeological evidence to support it. Unlike those who have been digging under Al-Aqsa for 50, 60 years now and haven't found a thing to resemble the supposed Solomon temple that they've been telling us about. What else do we have here? Free Palestine is saying out of 100K millennials, 68% answered 2 questions. What's the obstacle to peace in the Middle East? Zionism and Israel racist policies. And when they were asked, do you support Israel? They said, I don't believe Israel should exist. Yes. Why do millennials believe that? Because they are liberated from the mainstream media propaganda, brainwashing, and malicious and evil lies. And it's not just them now, by the way. Most of my viewers are over 55. Half of them. You're talking about a generation that was brought up on mainstream media. Why are they listening to me? Because they don't see this there. Oh, no, hold on a second. What is he saying? I don't hear that there. But then I'll go and speak to some of them. They'll tell me, oh, I haven't been even watching the news since 1997 or something. They'll say, oh, okay. We have dedicated people who know what's happening, who have been knowing what's happening before us do. Right? But it's more difficult and it's frustrating them, the millennials. And that's why they're coming up with draconian laws. So you can't convince them through manipulation and lies. What do? Draconian laws. Oh, either you think that way or prison, or you're kicked out from the university, or you have no job. What a wonderful democracy do we live in. What a beautiful democracy. beacons of human rights, I'm telling you. What is that? That's why they want to ban TikTok. So they can't win. They can't win. No solution. Shut everything down. That's it. And then start targeting everyone based on their... Well, we're getting there. You need to understand something. We're getting there. That's the scary part. History has proven that many governments, from a very long time ago to this day, they literally go against the law that they themselves implement on the people. How else do you interpret a government or a person taking a government body to the court, assuming that they have the means, assuming that they have the energy, assuming that they have the mental toughness to do that, because most of them don't. They just want to live their life. They can't make ends meet. They'll just whatever. You know what I mean? And that's another policy deliberately implemented to make people just be slaves for the money so they don't think about anything else, right? And I don't care, for hell it. But why do some of them win against the government? What, does the government not understand the law? No, they know the law and they actively go against it. Why? Because they have the power and the money. So they'll go against everything that our ancestors lost their lives for, by the way. Let's not forget that. So when the government that's supporting a genocide is telling you, I support, for example, democracy or human rights, you don't support it. You lying hypocrite. You don't support it. You go out against it deliberately. You want to shut it down. You don't want people to speak. You don't want people to protest. You don't want social media. You don't want this headache. You want your money being channeled by the people who support you, your Zionist masters, that you lick their boots, right? Or anyone supporting you with money. Don't fool us. They're against it. But when there's a mass awakening, what can you do? What can you do? Start murdering everyone. It's difficult. Instead, it's very basic. Listen. You know, some people, lots of people talk about democracy. And I talk about democracy. Why do I talk about democracy? Because it's the rule of the people. Why the rule of the people? Because the people should be at liberty to choose their lives and choose their rulers, okay? And then some people will tell you, oh, look at all of these democracies. It's all fake. Them saying that they have democracies is fake. That's what's fake. What is democracy? Choosing an authoritarian government for 4 years to do as they wish and not go back to the people in any given moment, even if there's millions in the streets? What kind of democracy is that? You turning against every single thing you promised us to vote for you, but now we can't do anything because you're in power? What kind of democracy is that? In Athenian democracy, people were consulted regularly on sometimes basic things. Meeting. And that's how you constantly have an ongoing reform, revival, and refinement of your country, of your laws, of everything. Why? Because you get everyone. People who agree with you, people who don't agree with you, people who have criticism on this, criticism on that, and genuinely listen to the majority of the people and look to seek out to implement what's good for them, what's beneficial for them, and not do what's harmful for them, or things that they hate or they don't like, let alone despise. But when you have the government and when you have the media and when you have a military industrial complex and so much money, so things become Complicated, to say the least. Kupak was saying, have you heard that PA doesn't want Barghouthi out as a part of the deal? The PA hoped for Hamas to lose. The Palestinian Authority, led by Mahmoud Abbas, supported Israel's war genocide in Gaza in 2008, 2009, hoping that they would go back on Israeli tanks to Gaza. Who are we kidding? They're killing people who resist Israel in the West Bank. Of course they wouldn't want Barghouthi, even though he's from Fatah, because he supports the resistance. That's why. Because all they care about is their billions and being doormats to Israel, to the people who despise them. What did they do ever since the 1993 peace process? Okay, in the first couple of years we had a prospect, maybe. Okay, you know, you think, okay, you can swallow the pill, get rid of that. We'll let go with this and that, and we will reach a deal and have a peace. You know, there was a bit of a vibe in Israel supporting peace, and then they killed their own prime minister, Israel, the only prime minister who was killed. Who? Yitzhak Rabin. Why? Because he wanted peace. What does that tell you about a country? Dodgy, by the way, assassination. Don't believe the official narration, by the way. And many people spoke against that, against the official narrative of assassinated. Most likely a deep state assassination. Wouldn't be surprised if it was supported by the United States, because they didn't want peace. But then, okay, he was assassinated. Consecutive governments, they are careless about you. Constant expansion of settlements that are supposedly in your land, in the West Bank. Killing, murdering, this, that. You have no sort of authority whatsoever. A couple of people with weapons, supposed policing, who go and turn against their own people when ordered by the master. So of course he doesn't want Barghouthi out. That's why many people who oppose Mahmoud Abbas are in exile. Even Dahlan, by the way, who's not a great character. He had a really bad role in Gaza. He tried to stir a sectarian war in Gaza. He started to call Hamas Shia. Imagine that. How vile is that? They're not Shia. They claim they're Sunni. Right? That's number one. And then, so what if they're Shia again? But that was the trend back then, right? With the US plan of having 100 years of a war between the Shia and the Sunni. He tried to have that in Gaza because Iran supports them. He ended up being expelled from Gaza after Hamas took control against all of the chaos attempts. But he doesn't want Barghouthi out. Why would he want Barghouthi out? Barghouthi, he will tell you revolution. Revolution, genuine, with national interests, the man. Can agree or not agree with any of them, really. You don't have to agree with all of whichever of them say, really. But Barghouthi and some of these, some people in Fatah movement, they are totally against the president. Who likes him in the West Bank? Go have a poll in the West Bank. How many of you approve Mahmoud Abbas? How many will tell you? But it would be a great accomplishment if he is released, by the way. I'm not sure what will happen, if Hamas will eventually end up giving up releasing like some very significant figures as part to reach a deal, because they've done so with Gilad Shalit. They were hoping to release Al-Barghouthi and Saadat, the Secretary General of the PFLP, which is more like a leftist socialist movement, and a man called Abdullah al-Barghouthi, who is the most dangerous prisoner. He has a sentence of approximately 6,000 years, in the longest sentence, like. So I'm not sure what will happen with them. But from what Benny Gantz said, that we will have to contain our anger when it comes to accepting the release of people with blood on their hands, He was probably insinuating that some of these people would be released, like top caliber, really. Zelensky saying if people are homeless, what's democracy? Totally. They don't want it. They don't want it. Look, the concept of, and some people might find it absurd, right? But that's been tried and tested in certain towns in the US. Universal basic income. Universal basic income. Everyone has a right to have a house, shelter, and free healthcare, and a basic salary per month. There's more than enough money in the world. You spend trillions on the army. What are you talking about? There's more than enough money to have a universal basic income. Then you have the ultra kind of violent capitalists telling you, no, it will harm productivity and this and that. There was this social experiment in a town, I forgot the name, in the US, I think it was in the 80s or 70s, and they tried to give people a universal basic income. And they wanted to monitor what happens, you know, a few thousand people, not like something massive. They're less reliant on the healthcare system. People have better kind of healthcare altogether all of a sudden. They're more productive, more productivity. So the facade of them not being productive is a lie. So they can be more productive and in return give more to the community and their country and grow the GDP. People are happier, everything is better. And you talk about a small amount of money. When you print money, what's the problem? They print money. But that's the thing, they want to keep people poor, to control them. Why? Because if you're fine, if you're getting a salary, you'll stop talking about having mental breakdowns, trying to make ends meet from month to month, and start thinking about everything else. Start observing the world. You know, when you're poor, and most of us are poor, like what's the definition of poor? Really? Most people are poor. Even if you want to talk middle class, you'll have stuff you're barely making it. You keep running after the money, after not chasing the money. Oh my God, I need to make ends meet. I need to save it. When you're not always just like following food or basic, you start looking at the world around you. Oh, what's happening over there? They don't want you to open your eyes like that. They want you like this, torn, tarnished, you know, tired, right? Completely done and roasted and looking for money. That's what they want because you're easier to control. And then they'll blast you with misinformation, and this is how they control people. That's the harsh truth. So what democracy when people, what democracy? No democracy. People living in the streets when others are looking at which private jet to fly in the next day. And don't get me wrong, good. If you can make money and make it big, good, amazing. I'm talking about systematically, because these things can't just be solved by an individual who makes a ton of money and start distributing it to people. I mean, you can, if you're a billionaire, probably make some change. On a smaller scale, yes. And that's how many people live, by the way, from people in the community who give to charity, who support their neighbors and people in need. It's such a good thing. But to solve it on a bigger scale, you need proper policies in place. And they don't want that. And they call it democracy. Why? Because you have a vote every 5 years. To vote for who? One of the two parties that both of them support. The people behind. And they'll convince you that one of them is better than the other. Through brainwashing 24/7. And spreading hate and racism and scapegoating communities. This against that. And these are the baddies. And all of the immigrants are this. And all of the Muslims are that. And all of the this are that. And they change the narrative whenever they want. Where did we reach? Kate is saying, will illegal settlers leave or will go postal and continue attacking West Bank Palestinians? Will Hamas protect both Gaza and the West Bank? No, Gaza and the West Bank are completely disconnected. And Hamas controls Gaza. The West Bank is controlled by the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. There are resistance hubs in the West Bank that are formed of some groups who are aligned with Hamas, with Fatah, with the PIJ, PFLP. They make their own kind of hubs. They have their own operation going on, but it's nowhere near the operation that's in Gaza at all. Gully Berg, thank you so much for your super thanks. I truly appreciate you, Mahmoud. What are your thoughts on what the US will do when this genocide ends? They will breathe. And by the way, Claire Roper, thank you so much for your super thanks as well. He said, grateful for your knowledge. I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And Gully Berg, going to what the US will do when the genocide ends, they will breathe. That's number one. They weren't happy with Netanyahu. Not out of, a moral position of being against genocide or what have you. No, not at all. They're fine with genocide. They just don't want it to that level. They don't want it at a level where it's exposed globally. And they've proven it. Why did they prove it? You're worried about the citizens of Gaza now? Where were you in October? Where were you when the first 1-ton bomb landed on a residential building and killed children and women and babies' bodies were everywhere? Where were you? Where were you? So they don't have a problem with genocide. They just have a problem with awareness, They don't want, people to know. If no one knew, they would completely nuke them. But they can't nuke them because it will affect Israel. They would completely let them get rid of everyone. If there was no media coverage, not media, as in no people coverage really, okay, or any decent media coverage, they would have told them, yeah, kill all of them. We'll give you everything that you want, not a problem whatsoever. Kill everyone, every child, every woman, every hospital, level the place completely. They were legitimizing all of the bombings before, calling it collateral damage. They were legitimizing them. The buildings, the hospitals, the mosques, the churches, some of the oldest churches, Orthodox churches in Gaza. Unbelievable, I'm telling you, and they get away with it. The hospitals, bakeries, water wells, wheat factories, everything. So now they'll breathe. They'll think about the day ahead. They will hope that they would reach some sort of a deal. They would hope there would be an agreement that will give the Palestinians some sort of independence in Gaza and the West Bank, although that's going to be so complicated because you have genocidal maniacs in Israel. Israel is a genocide state. It was established on ethnic cleansing and genocide, and it hasn't shown humanity any good side. It only showed us bad sides. Why? Because it's a country that was established on racism, on violent supremacy, on ethnically cleansing people. And they take pride in that. It's not that they take pride in that. Some of them want bigger genocides. And they're saying, we don't want a Palestinian state. Is the US going to be able to convince them or convince the Palestinians to have a very compromised, council-like state? Hamas already showed you that I'm not going to be happy just by running Gaza. They thought they will inject some millions to Hamas and they'll be fine. The PA and the West Bank are fine. Yeah, sure. Inject millions and billions and we will be fine. Gaza, we're not fine. So there's a different interpretation. when it comes to the two states, even within the Palestinian Authority, really. And I wouldn't say the Palestinian people even. It's generally between the Palestinian Authority and the majority of the Palestinian people. Are you going to get independence in this state formed on less than 7% of your original lands that Hamas is willing to accept temporarily as part of a way towards getting rid of the occupation altogether? That's the thing. If you're not going to provide them with independent sovereignty and having their own everything, economy, military, whatever, how is it going to work? And if you truly had anyone really in Israel that had any sort of influence, saying that, okay, we can start with that and then we can see what we can potentially reach afterwards. Like if you genuinely had a will in Israel, for example, and you had a Palestinian state, although you know me by now, you know I promote a one-state solution. I wrote a book about it. Go and read it if you haven't. Free on my website. But let's say you have a two-state, and there's someone good in Israel, for argument's sake, and they're willing to trade and open up and borders and everything, and okay, 5-10 years down the line, things get better. How about we have a federation or something, or a central government? I don't know, call it the United States of Israel and Palestine. Something, whatever. Something could happen, but when you're talking about Israel, like they've proved time after time that it doesn't work. It simply does not work. Look, if they left the Palestinian people alone in Gaza and the West Bank with all of their rights and still had inequality in general, they probably could have gone away with it. But this is probably meant to be, so that they're exposed and they're naked in their true shape, stripped off all of the sugarcoating, all of the manipulation and lies and deception, so that people can know them for who they are. Maybe it was meant to be. Where were we? And excuse me, by the way, if I haven't reached everyone, but I'll try and reach it before we wrap up, because it's getting a little bit nigh, but I'll try and address a couple, because some of the comments they go away, so excuse me in advance if I'm unable to approach all of them. And thank you for all of you, by the way, who participate and have their valuable input. I have Abna Dalil is saying, but how can Hamas even trust the mentioned state as guarantors of the agreement? US, Egypt, Qatar, no power of to be guarantor and so on. It's not about trust. When you talk about guarantors, it's about these countries. Well, why are they dealing with them altogether? If that's the argument, then why are they even negotiating? Because I don't trust you. Why should I negotiate? When you negotiate with people, when you negotiate with your enemies, people you're at war with, you don't negotiate based on trust. You negotiate based on a need to reach a solution. So you start to have agreements. And when agreements are written, they start to be binding. There are guarantors, there's more likelihood, there's more deterrence, there's more everything, right? To have some sort of security. That's not going to be total security, because the Palestinians don't have full security. They're not protected by the international law that should protect them. They're not protected by the UN that should protect them. So they have no faith in these people. Do you think they trust them? They don't trust them. But what they want is minimal guarantees that are very normal procedure when you talk about people mediating and people reaching a deal. You sit down and you sign an agreement. Witness, this is what's happening, so that if something breaks, you show it to the world, look who started it. Not that, and then again, you can go ahead and argue, okay, well, it didn't work before, Israel rejected. Absolutely, yeah, sure. But this is how you reach a deal in general. I mean, there is no other way that's common to try and reach a deal with people who you don't like or people you're at war with. So that's the way. And to the countries that are involved, don't forget, it takes efforts from them. Do you think Egypt or Qatar or the US like this? They don't like it. They don't like Netanyahu, right? And some of them are more diplomatic than others, but it's blatant. And they don't want a repeat of it. And they can have some sort of leverage, right? So that's how it operates to obviously reach a deal, but it won't guarantee. Look, what's guaranteed? Like Israel can tomorrow do something. The only thing it will make is it will have some sort of understanding and protection. And in case you don't know, here you are. The Badger saying Hamas said that they won't negotiate if Rafah gets involved. That means the deal will be off the table tomorrow or in a few hours because Israel started the operation. To them, they accepted the deal, so they're not negotiating. They pulled the rug. They pulled the rug. It was an exceptionally calculated and wise political move. They took away every excuse from Netanyahu. Not as if they won't be resisting him in Rafah. They were bombing their forces outside of Rafah because they knew they were about to attack. They annihilated the IOF, the Israeli Offense Forces, or the child murdering forces across all of Gaza. This is not like they... Do you understand? But they will wait. They saw already what's happening in the streets of Israel. You need to understand, some people in Israel, the opposite side to the people protesting in support of a deal in Israel, what are they saying? It's important to you to know what the Israeli streets are saying. They're saying that the protesters in Israel support Hamas and they support Sinwar. The protesters of the prisoner families, anyone opposing Netanyahu, they're Israeli, they're Zionists, they were Israeli flag. They support Hamas and they serve Sinwar. They'll tell them Sinwar is so happy that you're protesting. And that's an accomplishment of Sinwar, by the way, where he led the Israelis to say that in between them. People shouldn't undermine that or underestimate it and how much it does in Israel. And I'll take the last one from Francis. That'll be the last question. It's saying Hamas is... Oh, you said Israel. I get it. Okay. Then you said Hamas is attacking. Now I said Israel is attacking. Israel is attacking now. How can they deal with Israel after they destroy and kill more people? Same way they dealt with them previously, by force. Simple. And they have all of they're fully equipped, and they will probably receive harsher resistance. But look, I think Israel personally, and again, I could be wrong, but I think Israel will, if they have, again, that's assuming that anyone has any ounce of common sense. If Israel learned from the past 6 months and how they were faced by Hamas, they wouldn't put themselves in the same vulnerable positions they have previously. Like they wouldn't let their tanks be roasted. You remember when Israel posted leaflets in Gaza in the beginning of this genocide? What did they say? They said to the people of Gaza, you need to ditch Hamas. They were upset with the fact that there's still cohesion and the people still support the resistance despite the genocide, thinking they can turn them against their government. That's another win, people. Don't underestimate that. People support the resistance. The only people turning against their government are in Israel. They told them, people of Gaza, Hamas leaders don't have the time to fry an egg. Hamas don't have the time to fry an egg. Ditch them now. They're losing control. You need to support us. Then Hamas, a figure in Hamas, posted the response to Israel, telling them, we don't have time to fry eggs. We're too busy barbecuing your merkavas. We don't have time to fry eggs. We're too busy barbecuing your merkavas. And they indeed barbecued them, barbecued over 1,000. And what's going to happen in Rafah is the same. Unless Israel knows, and they have this magic type of plan, magic attack plan where, well, what are you going to do? Just airstrikes? Clearly airstrikes, they just kill civilians. Unless you just want to kill civilians. Okay, fine. I told you, then Netanyahu would give a truckload of bodies to Ben Gvir and Smotrich, the sacrifice. Here you go. That's the sacrifice, the blood of Palestinian babies. You can drink some of their blood and stay with me in the government. Unless that's what they want. Could be. I don't know. But militarily, what are they going to do? Nothing. They will be faced with fiercer resistance. And we'll finish it there. Again, thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Thank you so much for your contributions. I really appreciate you all, especially everyone who sent super thanks. I really appreciate you. So generous and kind of you. Eslinsky, Got Milk, Gullyberg, John Doe, Amin, Dunya, R, Kisti, David Lee, Jihad El Aidi, Khalid Razak, Emily, Ben Steed, Z UK, John Doe, you're so generous, more than once. Canadian Snowflake, Francis Fitzgerald, Mudassir Hussein, Blank Stairs, Koopa Coop, and Patricia Gail McClary. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. And your support is really and truly appreciated. And thank you for everyone who contributed, members and subscribers, and our moderators. Thank you so much too. And apologies again if I missed, by the way, any of your comments. Sometimes, you lose track of the comments, but hey, I'm hopefully here with you regularly. So apart from that, enjoy the rest of your evening, day, night, depending on where you are, or dawn soon if you're in the Middle East. And I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.